Psychology is the science of understanding human behavior and mental process, how people think, how we feel, and how we behave. And therefore, if we study psychology, we will learn why and how people think, feel, and behave in a certain way. Why some people are nice, why some people are nicer, why some people are somehow not nice at all, and so on, right? But we won't be able to read minds, right? Because it requires something called tests, right? That we need to build some tests in order to know how people think. What can we do with a degree in psychology? Okay, recently people talk about the fourth industrial revolution, fifth, and so on, where things are being automated by artificial intelligence or IoT, Internet of Things. Does it have anything to do with skills and psychology? Yeah, as long as psychology will still be there, even though you change labors with machine, psychology will always be needed as long as humans are still around. How many people are not ready to move to the Industrial Revolution 4? The pandemic forced us to move to be ready. So now, like 10 or 20 years back, maybe your parents or your seniors thought about, okay, there will be one day that you don't have to go to school. You can study from home using internet, or your father don't have to go to work. They can do their work from home. And now we are here, we're all studying from home, right? So right above it. I mean, we are now somehow get used to it already after almost a year or a few months doing this. And we started to feel that it's getting more, we are getting more efficient and more effective in doing that. But the thing is, like, will psychology still be relevant? I believe you say it is still relevant. Do we have the infrastructure for this? Yeah, like we are now doing everything from home. Not perfect, but yes, we do. Now, what happened after the pandemic is almost over? Okay, too many people want to go back to offline work and printed stuff like in the previous time. But, well, okay, let's talk about future instead of the past. So these are the different paths and careers in psychology: industrial psychology, cognitive, developmental, human personality, counseling, and so on. Right, even politics. If you see at the right side, second from the bottom, you see politics or PR, public relation. So it is required. And we have in health university soon, we will have sports psychology, which is really interesting. It's a great, the lecturer will be the one who's handling the Malaysian team for Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah, she is. So let's start with the example 1, industrial organizational psychology. So we might want to know in this subject, in this, not subject, area of psychology, we will learn on how to do human resource, like how to recruit people, how to train people, how to place them. So, so we have former students or graduate who now work in an international oil company, and his job is to place people. Let's say, okay, country A requires more technical people, but country B needs more marketing people. So he is the one who will switch them based on the research he did and so on. So yeah, industrial psychology or organizational psychology deals with that kind of stuff. Right. So it's why I talk about that way, because in case you played something like Soccer Manager or Fantasy League, yeah, we are doing that, but in companies. That's in the industrial psychology are doing. Okay, the second one is the research in educational psychology. So this is what educational psychologists do. Well, some of them are doing the field work, like in a career counseling or something like that, or the school psychology. But some people we do research. For example, I did some research like this. If we feel we matter to other people, then we will feel included, and then we will believe that we can teach or learn better at home. But it depends on our personality. For example, it depends on our whether we are extrovert or introvert, something like that, right? So yeah, the details about it will be clearer when you are in psychology. Right, the second field is the third one is the mental health service, like clinical psychology.
This is really relevant these days because we are all stuck at home. You constantly see a lot of advertising about mental health services that's provided out there.
Correct. And somehow we are dealing with two levels of three about the conditions of people. So first let's say we talk about depression. The first kind of depression is like depression symptoms, where people show some symptoms of being depressed. However, these people, we can't actually call them depressed or diagnosed with depression because they are not diagnosed with depression yet, unless if they went to they see the clinical psychologist, and the clinical psychologist diagnose them, and okay, you are diagnosed with depression, then the treatment should be different, right? That's why
How different are clinical psychologists with ordinary psychologists, if there is any?
Well, clinical psychologist is a field. Clinical psychology is a field, just like educational psychology, organizational psychology. So
it's a specialty. Is it safe to say that?
Sorry?
It's a specialty, more of a
yes, I would say that.
All right.
It's more into specialties. And what they do is dealing with people with, I would say, psychological discomfort.
Okay. Somebody who's suffering.
Yeah, somebody who suffered from something, some psychological disturbance. Right. The second one is counselor. Now, counselor also deal with people with discomfort, psychological discomfort, but they deal with people who are not clinically diagnosed. Right. So counseling psychologists or counselors are people who are dealing with clients who are having psychological discomfort, but they are not, we can't call them having mental illness or mental, their mental health is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if it's a physical health, it's just like when you have sneezing or cough, right, or itchy skins. Now we go to counselor. But if there is something you need some surgery, like imagine it's a physical illness, then you go for a clinical psychologist.
So they help you identify the problems, and then once you identify a problem, if you want to take the next step, you go to the clinical psychologist. Is it correct?
Yes and no. For people who need to go for a clinical psychologist, the counselor will suggest you to go for a clinical psychologist. But if they don't see that you are if it's not severe enough, if I may say, or the problem tend to be like social problem. For example, like let's say I got something happen, like I lost the loved one or something like that, then I feel sad, right? So that might not be considered as a depression. I might show some depression symptoms or sadness, but am I diagnosed with depression? Maybe not. Now, people who are diagnosed with depression, they will feel that way without any specific causes, without any specific, like being broken up from their boyfriend or girlfriend, or without anyone in their family having troubles, but they feel that way all the time. Now, that can be considered as diagnosed with depression. That's for example. Right. Just like people with anxiety. I mean, of course, if like when you look at the number of the new case of COVID, some people get anxious, but are they clinically anxious? Actually, no. It's not clinical disorder. It's just being anxious.
And through the psychology courses, we are able to learn how to identify these symptoms, if you will, and then help them to address it. Is it correct?
Correct. Right. Yeah. Thank you. Right. Now, psychiatrist is another field. These are for people who has already graduated from medical school, so they became medical doctor, and they study psychology. Right. So the difference between psychiatrist and clinical psychology is that psychiatrists, because they are medical doctor before, they can suggest you to take medicine. Right. So clinical psychology, they will dig deeper mentally, but they will not go physically. Now, psychiatrists will deal with your physics, like giving you some anti-anxiety, anti-stress, anti-depression medicine. something like that.
Understood.
Yep. Right. So the next one are psychologists with technology-related field. For example, people who are dealing with workspace design. Like, do you know why a warehouse door should be opened outward instead of inward, just like your bedroom?
No.
Yeah,
That's a very interesting question, actually.
That's what they do. Such design.
Okay.
Designing workspace, like how far your laptop should be from your fingers. Like if you remember the ergonomic keyboard, which are split between the Q, W, E, R, T, Y, and the other part. Now those are the design of people who study human factor psychologists.
The same as what I've heard is the open space concept in offices and closed space concept in offices, because apparently in open space concept psychologically it helps people to collaborate more. Is that correct, Doctor?
Correct to some certain of work. I mean, if you're talking about one team of work, let's say if the company is really rich and they can have like, okay, one room for one department, it works. But if the company is like a startup company, they start the office with a small room, small space. So people from the HR might not want their screen to be seen by other people from the marketing. That's what I mean.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends. But workspace design will be based on the comfort first.
Like so I can study how to design a space to optimize human comfort. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. And talking about, some people might see like, yeah, but now we're studying at home, we're working from home. So what's the point of doing that? Ooh. Therefore, there's the third option that I put there is the UX designer, the user experience designer. When you you buy online, okay, in a few days there will be 8, right? There will be discount and so on. So have you ever thought about the algorithm, that when there was time when you look for shoes, for example, and then the next time you open that online shop, they will show you shoes again. For example. Now that kind of algorithm was actually built based on user experience, which actually related to human factor psychology. Now, including like how do we get the proper impression for the user of certain apps by using the colors, by using the location of the button. Is it on the left side or the right side? Things like that, right? Again, starting next semester, there will be a subject in health psychology. It's called psychology of color. So, like if you want your friend to like you, maybe you're not supposed to wear black instead. You wear orange, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. Now, the technology-related behavior that what I do is a social media related, like FOMO, cancel culture, woke culture. That's what I am actively researching. Right. So this is getting more prevalent when we are, all of us were sent homebound, like we are not supposed to get along in the field. That's why, imagine like why cancel culture? Like when you don't like someone, then you cancel them, like BLM movement or things like that. Why does it happen today? I mean, nowadays, instead of like 20 years back, while the slavery or the injustice had already happened. Well, there might be some attitude, but because of the social media wasn't there, then we were...
Hold on a second, Doctor.
Sure.
Miss Hanusa, would you be okay to mute your mic? All right, it's all right. We have muted it from our admin. Sorry, continue, Doctor.
All right. Yeah, so because of nowadays, information is so everywhere. So whatever we say today might affect someone else tomorrow, right? Even what we thought at night before bed, let's say you were thinking about something, and then you type your thought in your Facebook status or Instagram or Twitter. The next day, everyone that is linked to your account can react based on that.
Mm.
Now, imagine why psychologists who were practicing psychology, let's say 20 years back or 30 years back, they might not know that this will happen, because when we have the thought at night, we can only communicate with people tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? When we imagine before the cell phone, we can, I will tell my friends tomorrow that someone is having a birthday, or, oh, this is an exciting holiday, so I will tell my friend when I get back to school. Now, nowadays, people don't even think about that. What they do is like they share. They share in the Instagram account, right? Back then, maybe when we were really young, teachers after holiday used to say this, like, okay, tell us what have you done during the holiday. No, we can't do that, because everyone already know where we went.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why social media behavior actually changed the world of psychology itself.
And then
Right.
obviously
Yep.
with posting like this, a lot of companies will leverage on information like this to make a couple of bucks out of it, out of your experiences as well, right? Because
Exactly.
corporation can hire a psychologist to analyze what you have done and create another package to target another customer. Is that correct, Doctor?
Yeah, that's a timely statement, because the next one is the data analysis or data management specialist. These are psychologists too, right? So just like the example that you use, for example, let's say I own a factory, a shoe factory, let's say a good brand, multinational shoes. Then I have a shoes design and produce, and I want to know what month, what time of year that I can start launching it in Malaysia, for example, and in which state. Now, I have my data analyst or psychologist who will check, okay, based on the 10 years of buying pattern, people from the district of X, from the state of Y, tend to buy shoes during August, for example. Most of the time, they are 25 to 30 years old, the young adult people. So if I have my shoe design is for that age group, then I would like to launch my shoes product in that state, in that district, around August, because of that data, right? Just like do you remember timing the time when we were still, kind of free to travel using airlines? Yeah.
Sounds like a bygone days, Doctor.
Oh yeah, it's gone by the days that we can do that. And if you notice, sometimes when we want to plan a holiday for the next year, then we look at the price, which month or which date of the year that it's kind of really free. And sometimes it can be zero, right? Or sometimes we have free food. Now, that kind of pattern is actually based on the data that is crunched or processed or managed by the psychologist, by the data analyst. That is why when we travel, we choose a date of traveling. Okay, I will go next year. I will go in August the 2nd, for example. Now, unfortunately, the August the 2nd is an exam time, and we only know that during the exam announcement, like June or something like that. Then we start to realize, oh, we missed that again. But somehow we already bought it with the 50% price. So it's not cheating, it's just using data, right? Another thing that is more simpler, is when you see supermarkets in our area, for example. Sometimes you look at the price of let's say, price of coffee is very cheap, it's almost free in supermarket A, but at that time, it's not actually the time for you to buy coffee, right? That is why it works that way, because they see the data of which product is being bought a lot in certain times. That is called market behavior, which is already also studied in psychology.
These people are very powerful, because if you are students that masters this kind of this field of studies, basically you can bring a small company to a big company from nothing, because you have the power of knowing your customers' behavior and preferences. From there, you can learn how to sell your product. So these people are really, really powerful, isn't it?
Yes, correct. And some of them who has the business mind some of them might start a startup company that in a year they become unicorn, like having, billion of assets without going public.
Yeah,
Now,
so I think this is really good topic, not just for a person that is interested in psychology or personality. They may be entrepreneur themselves, isn't it?
yeah, because entrepreneurship is actually within
Yeah.
psychology.
So this is really powerful course, I see.
It is.
So kids,
Thank
listen
you.
up. This is really what you want for the next generation of a business world out there. Continue, doctor.
Thank you. Okay, the last one, not the last one, I guess, but this is something that we can't neglect. Special needs education. If you see our society, we have people who are different from us, but nowadays you can see, compared to, maybe you can't see, but maybe if you ask your parents or your grandparents, you can ask them how certain people were treated like 30, 40 years back. Some people, when they can't score high at school because they can't understand the way we understand, common people understand, they will be like locked up, or they don't have any schools for them to study. Ended up, they grew up without being educated. They might be depressed. They might, sadly die early. But now, people with learning disabilities can still learn.
And
Now,
be productive.
Yeah, I mean, previously we call them having a learning disabilities, but they are not able to learn, right? However, there are people who study how to make this kind of people learn. And that might sound, compared to the previous topic that we talked about, it might sound a little less glamorous. But to my knowledge, this is the part that you can start really early without taking any specialization. I mean, of course you need to, but you can start really early because the demand is really high.
Especially these days, what I've learned is that there's a lot of kids out there that have ADHD. They have, not to say very massive learning problem, but they consider themselves slow learner to a certain extent. So is it true that this study will teach students that are interested how to teach kids better? Is it true?
Yes, it is true. And if I may say, we have labels like ADHD or spectrum or Asperger or autism, which clinically, based on for clinical psychologists, it is necessary to have them labeled that way to see the symptoms and so on. But for special need educators or educational psychologists, which is myself, we don't really have to see those labels. Let's say someone with autism is sent to me, then I could measure how this person actually learned without me knowing whether he's an autism or ADHD. And after I know the way he learns or she learns, then we will teach them normal thing like what everyone learn at school, but with specific way, in a different way, definitely. And we can expect them to have a progress. Now, this kind of stuff like 30, 20 years back was not that happening.
True.
But now we can see that some people with trisomy 21, or we know it as a Down syndrome, or people with autism, these people can be CEO, they can be famous musicians, they can be director of companies because of the people in special needs education.
With company these days are being more diverse, like Starbucks and McDonald's, they are actively hiring these special needs staff member to fill in their ranks, because they know that there are certain things that these people can do differently from normal people, and maybe even do it better than certain other people. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. I believe that you are not a person who can, let's say, draw straight for 24 or maybe not, for 8 hours in a row, right? And one paper, draw 100 straight line. Can you do that? No, but people with Asperger, people with autism, they can, right? So that's why some designers are having autistic spectrum, right? So that is why we have something called individualized education program. This is a education program specific for a person with a certain way of learning that might be different from other people. And just for your knowledge, students, this is really highly paid. even at your early career. So yeah,
But I
if you
guess
really,
working
yeah,
with instead of just paying, instead of the wages and salary, obviously there's another different reward or satisfaction from helping special needs kids like this, right?
exactly. I felt that. I was in this field, Marvin, but I didn't have the patience. So yeah, I left it to people with the patience.
It does take a different level of patience, but in that
Definitely.
courses, I did have experience teaching special needs kids in terms of music, and then
Mhm.
these students they pick things up differently. I sadly don't have the credentials or the formal education of from this special needs section, but I felt that if I were to have this kind of information equipped on me, I'll definitely be able to help these kids more, and obviously make their parents a bit more levied, or make their parents more proud, knowing that their kids are not what they think they used to be. They're not useless or any other way to label them, but they just people that learn differently.
Yes, you're right. And just to share you a little bit, I had my time in my previous years. I trained people, special needs kids bodybuilding,
Wow. Okay.
and they look good. They ended up look really good, so they can be a photo model, for selling shirts or cafe advertisement because they look good. I mean, their body look good, and they know how to pose. We used to label, okay, smile number one, smile number two, and so on. So, and they are really obedient to the photographers. So yeah, they can make money even before they get to high school, right?
It's
Yeah,
really
I
good
mean,
to know that we have dedicated courses like this to help these special needs people.
exactly, right. So this is the last one. It's the social and community works. Now, talking about social justice, as we used to talk just now, we have refugees, we have social injustice, we have white flag, and imagine how people in the, I may say, people who are less fortunate, they need to grow. Let's say everyone have kids, everyone have the next generation, but think about people underprivileged, right? So these people are they have a similar way of learning. They're not special needs and so on. They have the capacity, but they don't have the access, right? So social and community work with that. Like how to rehab people who are underprivileged or being traumatized. To get back to the society and learn better, right? Or maybe they used to be marginalized. Let's say they were
Immigrants.
refugees. Sorry,
Let's say they were immigrants.
they were immigrants, or they were immigrants, which is not that lucky. I mean, refugees, because I mean immigrants. I mean, I am immigrant too, but we're not. We're different. People who are, let's say, refugees are immigrants who had uncomfortable this position in their own country. That's why they need to leave. Let's say their country has war or has social injustice up to the point that they have to come here for protection.
For
So,
asylum.
asylum, for example. Now, that kind of people have a PTSD, like post-traumatic stress disorder. That's why they need to be rehabilitated in order to get their potential back when they want to contribute to our society. Right. That's why we have the rehabilitation of victims, rehabilitation of abuse. Talking about people who are not really good in parenting, but they have kids, so they might, wrongly abuse their kids or love them in a wrong way. Right. Now, these children might grow up in a different way. That's why they need to be rehabilitated or treated differently. Right. Correctional service, as I mentioned to you just now, like prisons. Some people were financially challenged up to the point that they have to steal or they have to rob to make money. And once they got punished by law, like going to prison and so on, it's not sometimes what they did is not that
Serious.
bad, not that serious. But sometimes the punishment when they went to prison, they might deal with people who committed more serious crimes,
True.
and when they come back to the society, they have learned for, let's say, 3-5 years dealing with people who thought about violence, thinking about the crime. So that's why they need further correctional, even after they left the prison, right? And we also have forensic psychology. When we talk about how to treat people when they went out of prison, forensic psychology is technically studying to put right person to the prison instead of wrong people to the prison, something like that. Now, still part of what I I teach in forensic psychology is military intelligence.
Sounds very interesting.
It is. In some years ago, we have terrorism, in my original country, Indonesia, and we have what can I say? Cold War, like between countries. It's not that the country A and country B are at war, but there are some people who don't want everyone else to live in peace. So they put some bombs, they put some, something to make a statement that your country is unsafe. Therefore, let's do something else. Let's topple the government, that kind of stuff. So military intelligence is working towards that, to make sure that your nation is safe from disturbance from other nations, or even from your own people who are trying to create the unsafe situation, something like that. Right, that's a military intelligence. I can't speak much about it because it's all secret.
Okay.
Right. Now, then the disaster relief force, if you remember, there were big tsunami back then in, I forgot the year, 2000 something, 6 maybe. Now, imagine how many people who just suddenly lost their loved one, or maybe the missing planes. If you remember, Malaysia had 2 cases of missing planes. Yeah, it's all started with MH and have number 7 in it.
MH17. 317.
317, and there's one more, right?
Yeah, there's one more.
Yeah, so imagine those family members who need to get back to the society with all of those sudden sadness, So, yeah, we have psychologists who are dealing with that kind of people as well. Social works, disaster relief force, and so on. So now,
even today, I think.
Yeah, especially with the pandemic, right? And the difference with the pandemic is that if we are close to them, we know that they are leaving. Of course, we don't expect that they will be leaving, but they show some symptoms first. But people who lost their family members in the missing airplane, that is a totally different case.
It's a snap, and then
suddenly they're gone. Right? Yeah, it's very difficult to accept. Right. So in the future, do we need psychology? Now, the question can be answered by our long conversation just now. That we still have problems there, so that's why we need psychologists.
It's safe to say psychology is really flexible, because with what you say, Doctor, just now, every sector, from government to private sector, from startup to mega corporation, all of these steps requires a psychologist in a way. From government, they need military intelligence, they need social workers, they need prisons, psychologists in their prison cells, this kind of thing. And then obviously in private sector, you need psychologists that analyzes what human behavior does. So it's really relevant. I don't think there will be a time where psychologists become irrelevant at any point.
Exactly.
Are you confident with that?
Yes, and I am confident about this next slide that I will show you. But before that, I would like to show you first. Okay, could you please look at my slide, and I will flash you this slide, and please repeat the word you see in that slide. Okay, look at the screen. Okay, what did you see just now?
A triangle.
Do you see any sentence or word or phrase inside?
A glimpse. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, let's do it again.
All right.
Okay.
Once upon a time.
Okay, and I believe that some students believe that it was once upon a time, right? And when I told you that it's not, would you believe me?
I will first question myself because I'm inherently always questioning myself.
Exactly, because we are always questioning ourselves, and then I believe that some of the students are sure, like totally sure, it was once upon a time.
Yeah.
See, it's once upon a time, right? But how can I say that you guys are wrong, might be wrong? Now, then we have this, the same thing that's seen from different angle. Now, in order to iron it out, first we can see the fact, and second, we can counsel a psychologist. Okay, let's try the first one. Let's see the fact first. What do you see now?
Once upon a time. A time.
Yeah, see, even when you are looking at it, right? I mean, because we humans tend to make that kind of errors. That's why psychologist is required to iron out our errors, technically.
I think psychologists in this department will help me identify why I question myself and why I have learned that my brain will suddenly fill in the blank or remove the A from existence. Yeah, I could learn a lot about myself through this just a short demonstration itself.
Correct. Okay, so I'm finished. I finished sharing. So how to do that? Because I lost my cursors.
No worries. Let's for the meanwhile let the student post in their questions while I ask certain questions that I have or I observe myself. So one question for the students out there, or by the students out there, typically would be, what kind of character, what kind of a personality would I need to have in order to be interested in psychology itself?
Okay, that question is twofold. Like, first, am I good for a certain type of psychology, and what kind of person I am? If I can take my liberty to say that you might want to see what you love doing first. I mean, back then, people have a very high diversity of income. So many of our, I won't say ancestors, but parents, they need to work on something that they don't like because that pays, right? And when they choose to do the work that they like, it's not always pays well. So that's why we might not go to school and so on. But nowadays, everything pays well, right? So it's good to have a picture of what you love to do, not what you can do, but what you love to do. I believe that every one of you or some of you have a really high score in mathematics. But do you love doing that?
Not really. We just have to get
That's
it
what
from
I mean.
parents.
Yeah.
And then because we all like you said, we need to learn about ourselves. So is it true that even only in psychology, for me to be able to be successful in psychology career, I need to love human being, need to love personality? Or can I take a stand that, hey, I'm not really a people person? Is this field still relevant for me?
Okay, as you saw just now when we discussed about the many types of psychology, then let's say you dislike people, you hate people, you're allergic to people, for example. Perhaps the field in psychology that's good for you is UX expert, user experience expert or data analyst, right? That you will study people without meeting them. Okay, you can see the numbers of how many people are buying this or travel this to which place, right? Or the date of school students having holidays, so you can sell some things for them. No, but you don't have to meet them. Gone are the days where we have to interview people directly. You can see all the data from internet right now.
To a certain extent, I know that some certain town in other foreign country, they actually hire psychology to create hostile environment for certain specific reason. For maybe, let's say, to deter thievery or deter terrorism, or to deter even homelessness from just scattering around the town. So they hire these kind of people. Am I right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that was part of the forensic psychology and the military intelligence.
Wow. So it's okay for you to take a stand. Maybe you might not like people, but this field is still relevant for people that don't like people. That's very interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
But on the other hand, if I like people, I can study how to teach people better. I can help people rehabilitate them. Let's say they done something wrong, reintroduce them into the society, this kind of thing, right? Very
Correct.
social justice kind of career path, is it?
Yeah, and I forgot to say just now that in health psychology we have a subject, okay, a legit subject with final exam and everything. It's called romantic relationship.
Okay. So relationships.
No, not just relationship, romantic relationship, romantic and intimate relationship. That's exactly the name of that subject.
Okay.
So some people who are worrying about something, just go to psychology, study that, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. Next question is what if are there any like really notable, what are the notable people in psychology world, the world of psychology? I know one for sure would be, I think a lot of students will agree with me, is Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, okay. If we talk about that person, yeah, I guess because that person really practiced psychology well in every speech that he has, especially when he has the interview with, I forgot the name of the lady.
Karen something, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interviewer.
Yeah, the interview went a little bit hostile, but really professional. And Jordan Peterson really took it really well and flipped the table without flipping it, if I may say.
Now, what interests me the most from him is that I think it will be relevant for a lot of students is that he started out as a, what I would consider a typical psychologist kind of route. He was a psychologist, and he went into education because he taught in a college and became a professor. And after that, he carried out a lot of talks. And now he's doing YouTube, basically, doing a lot of TED Talks and online podcasts. This is relevant because this is what I observe. I don't know, doctor, if you agree with me, because people typically would think that psychologists are a very institutional career, meaning they have to be attached to this big firm or this big company or this government. Some of them, like Jordan Peterson, made it out doing freelancing. Did you agree?
Yes, and if I may say, okay, what I love about Jordan Peterson is that he put things in the right place, if I may say, because in our world right now, if I may say, in Malaysia especially, you don't have certain regulation, the undang-undang that manage psychology profession. There is no limitation. Let's say in medical, you know that if you haven't graduated from medical school, that you cannot practice as a surgeon, right? You can't. But in psychology, they don't have it yet for now. Hopefully they will have it soon. This is how we get all of these pseudo psychologists practicing out there. Let's say, oh, if you are sad, come to me. I will. You have to think this way. Let's normalize this, normalize that. Some of them can be right, but some of them might not. So I believe that people like Jordan Peterson is required locally in Malaysia, to put things back in their places.
To add on to that, another thing that Jordan Peterson did, I think is really relevant for students, is that he has his own practice. If you're a person that is very entrepreneur minded, let's say you like to do business, you like to have your own firm, you like to do your things by yourself and not be attached, you can practice by yourself. Is that correct, doctor?
Yes, and all of those field of psychologists that we talked about just now, including like special needs, even military intelligence, or even education psychology or clinical psychology, all of them can work on your own, or you can start business on your own. You can start selling your service without having attached to any company, as long as you have the license, of course.
Yeah, of course, right? You have the license. Basically, you can have like your own house became not a clinic, but a counseling room, and then your private client would just come in and then go through their private session. That sounds very dreamy to me, honestly, doctor.
Well, to be really honest, if you want it to be not so dreamy, I can say you can do it online.
Wow! Because I bet because students out there, I know a lot of you are lost, and a lot of you are maybe going through a lot of problem. Maybe could be financial, could be and whatever kind of problem. Sometimes this counselor, they offer services very privately. They offer services online through webcam, just like what we are doing right now. They offer services through this kind of a platform, but still being safe and make a bank out of it, right? Because so it's I see that this field is so versatile that I think most of the students, they will find it in themselves that there's something that may interest them in this career. Am I right?
Yes, and if we want to make it really relate to those who are still at the level of student of psychology, right? Can you make money with psychology if you are a student of psychology? Well, I said yes, but of course we are not practicing psychologists. But think about giving tuitions for high school or elementary school children, right? Imagine that there are some parents who are frustrated because their children can't really learn math or English or Bahasa Malaysia from normal tuition center. But remember, when you learn about how to teach, how people learn, how to teach special way of learning might let you know how to teach math to this kind of children. Imagine how much their parents would like to pay you.
Oh, that's very true. That's very true. Because I when I was teaching special needs kids for special needs kids music, it really did pay relatively well. For I was in college, so at that time, if I would have this credential under me, if I had this, Mervyn in psychology and this and this and this, I think I would be making banks back then. But that's
exactly.
but that's my 2 cents. Yeah, but it's very true. Offering private counseling session, it is a really freelancy way to make a bit of money at the site.
Yes.
Now, students, do you have any other questions? Aidan Tan says that this makes me so naive. Well, I think it speaks true for a lot of people out there. Before I really understand a bit more about psychology, I didn't know so much aspect in life is being controlled by psychology. From the button we presses, from the things that we use, from the entry hall that we walk into, from the road that we drive in, all of these aspects are designed with psychology in mind. Correct, sir?
Exactly, Mervyn. Okay, continue. You were saying?
So I think if you have any if you're a person that likes to be in control or likes to not to say dictate, but if you're a person that likes to design how an experience would be felt by another person, this is one of the course that you can take. Not just design courses itself, because let's say in the field of design or creative design, they dealt with the creative aspect of it, but psychology design is a bit more different. Am I right?
Yes. If I may say, people with there was a game, Angry Bird, if you remember the game Angry Bird.
Yes.
It was actually created by psychologists. I mean, some of the creators were psychologists. That's why in a short time they can get like that success.
Oh, wow.
Or even Teletubbies. I'm not sure whether nowadays generation do you know Teletubbies, but
yeah, we do.
Maybe you know Teletubbies back then.
We do.
Do you know why it sucks? I mean, when you watch that, like, okay, well, it's so lame. Because that was designed only to be understood for people under 5 years old.
Oh. Wow.
Once you reach that moment, leaving 5 years old, you will never understand Teletubbies anymore. But before you reach that age, you will enjoy that movie like you enjoy watching Marvels.
True. Yeah, these days, I think for different level of personhood, different age, there's a different psychology that applies to it, and obviously with different level of psychology applies to it, there's different courses that caters to it, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so Mr. Yi Ching Yang Mo, do you need master or even PhD for psychology?
It depends on what kind of psychology you would like to do. But if I may say, general psychology or bachelor degree might give you the basic skills of every field of psychology, right? But can you make money doing that? Yes, you can. Just like what I told you, they can be a teacher, but you know how to teach people better than normal teachers, right? Or maybe you can start a business. with knowing people behavior better. Now, why should we take master degree? Is when you want to specialize in certain area. So, for example, I would like to answer Karina's question as well. So, if you want to specify yourself for forensic psychology, for example, yes, you can go to PDRM, for example, National Police, with your Master of Counseling Forensic Psychology degree, and you will get a special place in the CIT.
Wow.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's why, because you want to specialize in it. Now, what about PhD? So PhD is a license to do research. So before you want to do a good research in human behavior or market behavior or user experience, then you might need a PhD degree or prove yourself by doing PhD. Yeah, something like that.
Well, actually, TikTok is designed to leverage on human psychology as well, because they focus on short-term content so that people like to watch more. All these things are, like I say, everything is related to psychology.
It is, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Miss Harley Stavros, do people generally take both psychology and sociology together?
The simple answer is no, because sociology is studying how society behaves, and psychology is learning how a person or individual people behave. However, we have something in the middle, which is called social psychology. So social psychology is, for example, you want to know how to, let's say you are a politician and you want to have a high vote, of course. Then let's say your area is the district X in state Y, and you need psychologists or psychological skill to see the pattern, what kind of leaders they want, what kind of representative that you want. I mean, people want to represent themselves. So that's how you will get leverage in your campaign. That's how we study social psychology and sociology at the same time.
To bring it down a notch, instead of politicians, sometimes even just basic YouTubers, they would like to learn how to leverage on how to get more viewers instead of votes. They want to get more viewers. They also have to study. I mean, these courses will help definitely as well, right?
Yeah, especially when you want to have a certain people to vote you, to like or to subscribe to your channel.
So safe to say, like I said, everything revolves in psychology, isn't it? So I think we'll be closing today's session. Well, this has been a very eye-opening session for, I don't know for you guys, but it is for me, being able to talk to such a learned doctor here with us. We learn about the psychology of things, and we know that every aspect of our life is actually controlled by someone that is a psychologist. And actually, it is a very powerful profession. I can't stress it more. It's more powerful than a lawyer or a judge to some extent, because you are literally controlling a human behavior. So if that is something that interests you, definitely this courses is made for you. Or like I mentioned, to some weird extent, if you don't really like people, this is a courses for you as well, because this is where you learn how to deter people to some extent, right? So I think there's a different aspect in life, aspect in psychology that everybody can pick and choose from. So I bet this thing fits to a certain extent everybody. All right, but before I go anywhere else, I want to thank Doctor first. Doctor, it has been a pleasure talking to you. We've learned so much from you.